everyone, I wanted to do a quick video to catch up with you guys to let you know all about my last trip to Massachusetts, where basically I wanted to share with you some of the amazing results that we had with law enforcement, police officers, shooting accuracy, stability, reaction time, and their overall coordination. And I think you guys would appreciate some of this information, and I apologize for the delay. Lots have been going on. But before I start, I just wanted to say that none of this would have been possible without the state of Massachusetts, my good friend Jason, and it all began with Charles Poliquin. It's really thanks to Charles that I've been able to connect with Jason and the state of Massachusetts to be able to bring this science to them and help them with shooting accuracy and pain, just overall health and being globally healthier as a result of living a really, really stressful or having a really stressful job. As we know, law enforcement, police officers are the ones that probably live with the most stress because, let's face it, their entire lives are put at risk every single time. So it's really important to give them critical tools to be able to manage their stress. But what was really interesting this time is that we actually took these tools and we recorded them with a force plate to show if we can actually have a difference, not only with their posture, but with their foot posture, with their energy expenditure, and of course, with their shooting accuracy, but most importantly, with their blood pressure and grip strength. Now, for those of you that don't know, Charles Poliquin was the one who said to me that he wanted me to show if by correcting posture, we can actually have an effect on grip strength. And that was all that he cared about. And later on, he said to me, you know what? Screw grip strength. Let's go with the shooting accuracy. And I'm super happy to say that finally in 2022, we've been able to demonstrate that. So let me show you my screen so that I can explain to you some of the specific assessment that we went through. All right, so the first thing that we did is we assessed the officers. We went through a total of 12 officers, and we wanted to do pre and post, obviously, and pre-assessment. So what does their posture look like in the sagittal plane? Do they have any tilts in the frontal plane, and do they have any rotations in the transverse plane? Following that, we had a qualified person on hand to take the blood pressure, and then we had police officer coaches to basically take their grip strength. I then proceeded with analyzing their foot posture, so basically their overall weight-bearing distribution, the center of mass. How well are they fighting gravity? Are they leaning more on one side in comparison to the other? We then projected this onto what I refer to the circle of health. So any peaks that you see that are outside the bullseye would be considered pathological. So our goal really was to aim to get all of these peaks right inside the bullseye. Now, their foot posture and this energy expenditure is then, of course, there are other numbers that we can associate to that as far as how much movement are they actually borrowing within the surface. So in other words, are they wasting energy standing upright? How are they breathing? And what is their overall energy expenditure and mitochondrial fatigue? And of course, we then match that with their shooting accuracy. So here you have the pre. This is what you're seeing on top. And at the bottom is the post. So after correction. Now, it's important to mention that the tools that were used to gain these results are the therapeutic insoles that we work with. And the therapeutic insoles work specifically to change the way that your brain is projecting onto your muscles. So we're using a frequency to basically stimulate the sensory cortex of the brain to create a better postural strategy for the officers. But this is also true for really virtually anyone that is human. And there's more information on our website in regards to the therapeutic insoles. We did use the therapeutic model for those of you that are wondering. So pre-assessment, this was done on March 10th. We can see that the head is 7 fingers in front of the plumb line. So this would be someone who has somewhat of a forward head posture. Then their cervical curvatures were accentuated. We're looking here for a number of number 4, and we can see that their curvatures were at number 8, which is an increase in cervical curvatures. They have an anterior scapular plane. We're expecting to find a number 0 here. And at the level of the lower back, they do have 3 fingers, which is somewhat physiological. So we're looking for 2403, and what we have is 7823. So this is a subject that has somewhat of a forward head posture and an anterior scapular plane. So that's going to cost a lot of energy, because remember, when we're standing upright, we are actually using our muscles, and we're actually wasting energy standing upright. And if we waste too much energy, by the end of the day, we'll end up being really tired. Number 2, we took the blood pressure, and this particular officer had a blood pressure of 158/105, and their rib strength was 151 pounds. And we only tested this on one side, which was their dominant hand. Moving forward to their foot posture, which is what we can see right here, you'll appreciate that their left foot, the number in red, shows the weight-bearing surfaces. So in other words, their full body weight is leaning. Is there a symmetry between the two, and are they leaning more on one side? And what we can see here is that this officer specifically had 52.3% of his entire body weight on the left and 47.7% on the right. And of that, the top numbers represent the forefoot, and the below numbers represent the rear foot. We can see that there is a whopping 30% of his entire body weight on his right heel. So leaning mostly to the left, but on the right heel. So this just gives us an appreciation of his postural strategies and how he's actually standing in an upright posture before moving. Now, if we look at the circle of health, and let me zoom in on that for you to give you a better appreciation of this. So you can see here that we have now a pie of this reality, and the pie is separated into different numbers. We have overall coordination, we have tremors, neurology, instability, frontal plane, sagittal plane. We'll have frontal plane asymmetries, sagittal plane asymmetries, vision, rigidity, and so on and so forth. The point is, and what you're looking for from a visual perspective, is you want everything to be in the bullseye. You can see here that he has a little bit of peaks over here. He has a little bit of rigidity as far as neurology is concerned. So there's something going on, and we want to determine is if his foot posture is actually creating this instability. Because remember, if you have an imbalance with your foot posture, which he does over here, what's going to end up happening is that your overall stability and the way that you manage your head posture on your shoulder, on your pelvis, and through your feet, that's going to be compromised. So we might have a little bit of vestibular issues, and we might see a little bit of rigidity because your nervous system is basically sensing that you're unstable. So that's where the circle of health becomes really interesting. Now, moving forward here to the energy or overall energy expenditure, what we have here is pre-postural correction with the therapeutic insoles, and the length simply represents how much movement he's actually doing within the surface. Now, the more movement you'll do within the surface, the more energy you're wasting standing upright. That's not optimal. Again, we want to make sure that we waste the least amount of energy when we're standing upright. The second reading is diaphragmatic breathing, because when we breathe, we actually move in the sagittal plane. So whether you inhale or exhale, you kind of have this movement in the sagittal plane that's happening here. And the last number here, what we see is overall energy expenditure. And overall energy expenditure, I want you to think about that as far as your mitochondrial fatigue. So the higher the number, again, the more energy you're wasting standing upright. And last but not least, shooting accuracy. Now, the way that they measured this was in a special room called the Milo room, which is a room that simulates different types of situations and targets. The officers were in the room, and before any correction, we showed 5 different scenarios in which they had to shoot several times on one target. And we did that for a total of 5 targets, pre and post postural correction. And we can see here that on this target, the officer completely missed their, had very poor shooting accuracy. So let me zoom out of this and show you the difference. And this difference was obtained simply by using the therapeutic insoles and having the officer stand with them for at least 35 seconds. Now, back to the sagittal plane, we can see that those numbers here, 78, 23, we can see that those numbers now actually decreased, 46, 13. So we did have an effect on the forward head posture. We did decrease cervical curvatures a little bit. Sagittal plane went back by 1 finger, lumbar spine, no changes. But in the frontal plane, we can see that the shoulders are now aligned, they're leveled, and there are no more rotations. You see here, his left arm was forward and the right glute was back, whereas now in the transverse plane, we see a complete correction in the frontal and transverse plane. Blood pressure, 138 over 100. So we're having massive impact on blood pressure in a static upright posture simply by correcting the foot. And we're also having a difference by 3 pounds of strength with the dynamometer test. So from 151 up to 154. Now, let's take a look at the foot posture. You'll notice here that from a bit of an unbalance or asymmetry from 52.3, we went down to 51.6. So what we're looking for is 50-50. We want to make sure that the entire body weight is evenly distributed on both feet, forefoot and rear foot, left foot and right foot. And we can see here that we more or less have more of a 25% scenario going on here. And he seems to actually have switched his postural strategies as far as his right rear foot. Remember, he had 30% of his entire body weight on the right rear foot. Well, that now switched over to the left. Now, let's take a look at the circle of health. Look at that. Isn't this amazing? So from all of these different peaks that he had over here, we can now see that there's a full correction with the bullseye as far as the circle of health is concerned. And this is exactly what we're looking for. That's the optimal scenario. Now, if these numbers or if this circle of health is improving, we're going to expect the same thing with the numbers that we're reading here. Let me zoom out for you guys. So we can see that from 137.6, we improved his energy expenditure down to 110.5, that's square millimeters of movement. The breathing, diaphragmatic breathing improved as well from 25 to 19. And the energy expenditure here wasn't too bad. 49 is actually pretty good, but we, even in these numbers, we were able to improve them to 28. Now check out the shooting accuracy. You see, from missing the target to kind of getting the target over here. So let me superimpose these graphs for you to give you a better appreciation of the circle of health. We can see pre and post. If we superimpose those two graphs together, check out the differences. So this tells us that there's been quite a difference as far as the officers' postural strategies. They're no longer wasting energy standing upright. We can actually see also the difference with foot posture, with the sagittal plane, frontal plane, transverse plane. We can see this also with the force plate. These are the same numbers we saw before, but let me show you a full aspect, a full-blown aspect of the shooting accuracy. So in target number 1, I think that visually it speaks for itself, missing the target and boom, getting it right in the bullseye. As far as target number 2, we can see here an improvement as well. Target number 3, missing the target, getting it in the bullseye. That was the image that we saw before. And this was another scenario where we're completely or somewhat missing the target and again, getting the target right in the bullseye. So this can make the difference between life and death for any officer. And of course, the goal was to be able to demonstrate whether or not we can have an immediate impact on posture. I know that we can because we've been doing it since 2006. But what was really cool to bring to the forefront is to actually see these numbers with these officers and see if we can improve their blood pressure and grip strength as posture is being corrected. And so I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I hope that this made sense. There's so much more that I'll be sharing with you later on. I'm actually working on giving you more information about some of these studies. And this was on March 10th, 12 officers in total. And I want to take a moment again to thank Charles Poliquin for making this possible. So I hope that you guys are doing well, and we'll talk very soon.